If you've ever felt like you're building success at the cost of your soul, or that spirituality doesn't quite fit into your business strategies or with your luxury lifestyle, this conversation is going to open new doors for you. Today's guest is the perfect blend of business savvy and soulful wisdom. She's called the Spiritual Sherpa and a transformational shaman, a spiritual coach, and she's also having a podcast of her own alongside a purpose mystery school. Now, Kelly Sparta has been a powerhouse business coach, energy healer, and intuitive guide for many. So she helps people shift from burnout and hustle to conscious wealth and having holistic success. She spent over 2 decades guiding leaders through deep personal business transformation. Whether it's decoding limiting beliefs, unlocking energetic blocks, or designing a business that supports your nervous system and your bank account, Kelly brings the clarity tools and energetics to make it happen. So, welcome Kelly to Luxury Unplugged.
Thank you for having me, Needy. It's fantastic to be here.
Lovely to have you on board. And we have so many questions regarding you balancing the spirituality and the business angle, the business energetics, as you put it. So tell us something about that first.
Yeah, so when you are in business, and having been in business for 38 years, I've got a little bit of experience there. When you're in business, your personal belief structures, your personal energy patterns get built into your business, and this is especially true when you're a founder and you're just starting things out. But it's also true later on, right? Because as we grow the business, our energy, our intentions, our beliefs, our, guiding the ship actually creates the energetics of the business itself. And the longer you have your business, if you had a business that, for instance, didn't take off immediately, right, which happens to a lot of people, right, where the business just takes a little time to get there, right? So when it takes some time to get there, then the energetics of the challenges actually get stuck in the business. And so, there's a need to go and clean out the energetic construct of the business to clear out all of that angst and upset and woe is me and why isn't it working and all of that needs to get cleaned out for things to open up fully. So if you're having trouble receiving, you're going to have a hard time making money in your business. And so, for instance, if you are having a hard time knowing your own worth, knowing your own value, right, with worthiness issues, then you're going to have a hard time charging what you're worth, and you're going to have a hard time. Actually, what you'll end up doing is, instead of charging what you're worth, you'll charge maybe half or 2/3 of what you're worth, and then the other way that you get the energy back is through validation. So you're looking to be validated, and that's because you don't have a sense of your own internal worth in that case. And so these are some of the ways, many ways, in which your personal belief structure can get in the way of your business. And so, these are the things that I work with business owners on.
Right. So when you say that you are a shaman and a Sherpa for business owners, what exactly are you bringing in terms of spirituality? Is it meditation that you bring in? Is it some kind of consciousness that you provide? How do you really work?
Yeah, so I am not your traditional shaman. So one, I don't work with plant medicine. For some reason, everybody hears the word shaman these days and assumes it's plant medicine. It is not. And I'm not often working with meditation. I will occasionally hand someone a guided meditation or something like that, but it's rare. What I am working with people on is their internal beliefs. I'm working with them on up-leveling themselves as a person. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of a weird way to say it. I say it that way for business owners because they're all about the up-level. But in actuality, if you think of it, I have a friend who has a beautiful metaphor I love to use, which is if you are a spring You are an artisanal well, right? So it just flows forth automatically. And then over time, garbage gets thrown in the well by the world and by your upbringing and by your culture and by all the things that try and make you less than you are, until so much garbage is in the well that it just has completely tamped down the spring. And now the only water in the well is the rainwater that it happens to catch. And this is why we start to feel limited. This is why we start to feel like we aren't enough. And it's because we're viewing ourselves as the rainwater instead of the well underneath the garbage. And so what I do is I help people pull the garbage out of the well so that they can finally spring forth again and find all of themselves. And so to become the fullest expression of their authentic self, which puts them on purpose. That is your purpose.
That's a beautiful analogy that you've just spoken about, being the well and the rainwater. That's very fresh, actually. So yeah, I like it. And in terms of working with people as an energy healer, there are people who are sometimes lost. They've taken those steps towards success. They're sort of there, but they're just getting that kind of block in some form or the other. So that's sort of being lost in the mountains. What are the first signs that someone needs a guidance when they should realign their path and they should be thinking about something is not right energetically?
Yeah, so usually the biggest way to know if you're out of alignment is you're just miserable, right? You're like, oh, I don't want to get up, I don't want to do it, I hate it so much, right? If you're in that space, then you need a realignment. If you wake up in the morning, you're just like, I can't. Then if that's, I mean, we all have days where we can't, right? But if you've had months of I can't, then either you're burned out or you need a change, and probably both, right? Because we tend to burn out before we acknowledge we need to change. So the very first step would be to take significant time off. And when I say significant, I mean like a month or more, okay? A significant time off. If you're already burned out, if you are a crispy critter, if you are crunchy around the edges, a week is not going to do it, okay? It's only going to make you know that you're really miserable. A week off is going to be like, oh yeah, I really need more of this. That's all you're going to get. So I mean a month or more off. And when I say off, I mean not calling into the office, not thinking about work, not doing anything, not taking meetings, not doing, just off, right? And preferably out of your home, because then, your home is often a to-do space as well, right? So you take significant time off and then you look at it, and if you still aren't refreshed to go back in, then you definitely are at a time that you need a change. And so the change piece is very much about listening to what your soul is asking you to do, right? And oftentimes it's the thing you've always wanted to do, but have convinced yourself you can't for some reason or another. And I'll take this as an example, actually, because I've just done this in my business. So I'll use it as an example, not an excuse, but an example. So I have always wanted to do advanced level energetics trainings. And for 20 some years, I convinced myself that people weren't ready. And who knows, maybe they weren't. But I believed that that was true. And I have just, I've gotten to the point now where there are people who are ready. I can see that. I have grown them in my system as well as them coming in from outside, and everybody's waking up at higher levels now. And so it's like the world is ready now, right? And so I've just started doing a higher level energetics training program. And it's like people are just buying it like this. They don't even ask anything. They're like, yes, I want that. Yes. And then after they've said yes, they're like, okay, so what are the details? How does it work? It's just, it's when when your soul is calling to you to do something, you need to do that. And that's the piece where it shows up for you, right? But we get in the way. We assume things. We use our heads to rationalize and talk ourselves out of it and things like that. So, yeah.
Right. But tell me something, Kelly. What has been your experience? If, let's say, somebody's burnout and they are taking the time off, how, as a coach that I can come in, how can I really help them to can I'm asking you, as you in the role that you are, can you help speed up the kind of blockages that I'm facing so that I don't face them anymore and I can bring up my alignment quicker?
Can I increase the speed at which you recover from burnout? I have some tools that, yes, I could do that. Is it going to make it significantly faster? Is it going to turn a month into a week? No. The fact of burnout is you've pushed yourself past your ability to cope for a long time, and your body needs time to reintegrate. And that takes the time it takes, right? But there are ways to improve and increase the speed at which it happens through doing work with the vagus nerve and through doing practices that will help to integrate your energy field better. And yeah, there are ways to make it faster. But the challenge with the hustle culture, right? The hustle culture is what got you to burnout, right? So if you try to hustle culture your way out of burnout, you're just going to short circuit the process. And so that's part of the challenge, right? So you have to learn how to just be with what is and to learn how to be still for any period of time, right? Because I remember when I was first going through my burnout recovery, I was 28, and I literally took a whole year off. And the first month, I would be laying on the couch and I would wait, it'd be like 3 seconds and I'd be like, I should. And I'd go to get up and do something. And I'm like, nope, I shouldn't be doing anything. And then 5 seconds later, I should, right? And this went on for a month of me going, I should. Until I finally just went, no, I'm just here now, right? And so that's part of the thing is you got to break the I should, the jumping up and I should be doing something and I should be doing this or that or the other thing. And so that's part of it. But when you go to step into your purpose, a lot of that is really about just unwinding the stuff that keeps you from it, right? It's you are your purpose. So the only thing you have to do is figure out who you are. Right? Which for a lot of us, if we had upbringings that were, your life revolves around someone else, if somebody else was the dominant feature in your household for whatever reason, and you didn't get to be a person of your own, you were a reflection of what everybody wanted or needed you to be, then figuring out who you are is a huge deal. It's a lot of work because you're like, I have no freaking clue who I am, right? How do I possibly know that? And so that's where I come in. I have a process that I have worked through for the last 25 years that I have taken to a point where I can take 25 years worth of personal growth and development and 10 to 12 years worth of energetic training, and I put that all together into a 2-year process. So you can do it in less than a tenth of the time without breaking yourself in the process, right? Because it's all designed to be done in 15 minutes a day. And so it is entirely consumable. And the reason that I can do it that fast is because 98% of the effort of any process for somebody is figuring out what you need and then figuring out where to get it, that it's going to work. And I've already done those things. And so all you then have to do is just the work itself. And so it's entirely doable, and people have massive transformations.
True. So in terms of, going through the process, I would love to be at a place where I'm aligned with my business and I'm conscious about my soul mission also. So can you provide a moment where like some client of yours has pivoted from that hustle culture to alignment?
Yes. So I had a client who was billing herself as a alterations specialist for wedding gowns. And what she actually was a designer for wedding gowns. She would have people bring their vintage gowns, their mothers, their grandmothers, whatever, something they got at the thrift store, whatever. And she would then redesign that gown for the person based on what their intentions were. And she was calling herself an alterations person. And I'm like, no, And she was working her butt off. I mean, she was booked solid. It wasn't that she didn't have business coming in, but she was charging rates that were an alterations rate. And so she was working her butt off, but getting nowhere financially, right? She had the money to get by in life, but she wasn't thriving in life. And she had plenty of business coming in the door, but she didn't have abundance in her life, right? And so a lot of the work that I did with her was to get her to see who she really was. And, you know, she had done a lot of personal growth and development stuff before. And she was just like, oh my God, I've done so many of these things. I can't even imagine that something's going to actually work. And I was like, look, I promise you it's going to work. I will guarantee it, or I'll give you your money back. And she was like, what? I'm like, I can guarantee it. And she was like, I'm in. Okay. So, but yeah, a lot of the work that we did was about getting her to see herself more clearly, because we're the ones that we see least clearly in the world, right? We see everyone else as better. We always see ourselves as less than. It's this thing that happens. It's like, oh, that's just what I do. It's not a big deal. It's not valuable. It's just what I do. And it's easy for me. I got news for you. The things that are easy for you are your gifts. Right? Those are the things that are valuable because it's easy to you. It means that you are really good at it. And so, you know, this is the thing that I had to walk her through, was this idea of changing how she saw herself. And when we finished working together, she was about halfway to really being able to claim the designer role. She had doubled her prices already and was starting to go up to triple. And she was, you know, getting used to the idea of claiming designer, right? And so that was where things went from there. And so it was a beautiful thing. She's actually one of the testimonials on my website. She's in tears. She's like, you know, I thought for sure this was never going to work, but I'm actually being healed, and it's amazing. So yeah, I love her. I actually drove 9 hours to go to her wedding because I love her. So yeah.
I think that's really brilliant, because a lot of people move around in the world just about getting by. And yeah, this will serve, this will get the bread in, this will help my family, and that's about it. But what about the real traits, the real abilities, and the real capacity? Because we all are powerhouses, and that doesn't show most of the times. So when you say that you work with people, you know, who are selling themselves at less than price per se, how can the work of a spiritual coach help to blend intuition and strategy, you know, when you're meeting somebody?
Yeah. So you want to know how it works from my end or from their end?
From your end, because you have to see the capacity first, whether they will be able to take in your coaching or not.
Right.
That's how I view it. Yes.
Okay. So when I'm working with clients or potential clients, let's say that, right? I actually have a sales process that I walk people through. And this is one of the things that I highly recommend for anyone who's in a service-based business, is that you have a process that's actually designed to identify not only who's going to be a good fit, but who's going to be a bad fit. And my process rarely misses the boat on that, right? So people who are going to be a good fit are people who are highly coachable, who are open to change, who are not super defensive about things, and who believe that they need to change something they're doing in order to make things different, right? I once had I was doing trainings for a company. And one of the guys came up to me, and he was always the most outspoken one in the trainings. He was the one who was not making the sales, and yet he would always tell me I was wrong. And I'm like, okay, I've done this many sales. How many sales have you done? Right? And he was just like, whoa, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, but go and make sales doing what you're saying, and then you can come and teach the class. Right? That was the conversation. And he came up to me, I don't know, 2 years later and said, hey, would you teach me? Would you be my coach? And I said, okay, but you first have to say that I know more than you do. And he just was like, what? I said, there's absolutely 0 point in you hiring me as a coach if you don't believe that I know more than you do, and that I have something to offer you that you would be willing to adopt. If you do not have that belief, you will get nothing out of the coaching, and therefore it's a waste of your money and my time. And so, and he was like, I'll get back to you. I was like, that's what I thought, right? So, I have processes, the vast majority of the people I work with these days, I don't think I can even point to a single person that has had a problem with that in the last 10 years, right? This example was from like 25 years ago, but the people who come in now, it's much more about, are they in a place where they can work with me, or do they need to work with a therapist first, right? Because, and I call it, basically what I'm looking at is, are you in your damsel in distress, where when things go wrong, you collapse and you need to be picked up off the floor? Or are you in your knight in shining armor, where you're like, I'm going to save everyone, even if I don't know how to save myself, right? If you're in damsel in distress, you need to be in therapy. That's what therapists are for. But if you're in knight in shining armor, then you're in a place where you can work with me. And so it's very clear about where I need to be very clear about who I work with and what I can do for them, right? And the difference between the two is that a damsel in distress has to get mad. They have to get mad at being victimized, and they have to decide they'll never be victimized again. When they make that decision, they stand up and they become the knight, right? And that's when I can start working with them, because they're in a place where they have stood in their power. The powerlessness is the damsel, right? When you're handing over your power and asking people to save you, then you're in your damsel. When you're standing up in your power and going, I will never be a victim again, even if I don't know what that means or how to do it, then you're in a place where I can actually make massive progress with you.
Right. So in terms of, ambitious entrepreneurs, people who are in that kind of a position, which is like the knight in the armor, there are still misalignments, of course. That is why they would be needing coaching further.
Right.
So what sort of misalignments do you think are there in these kind of ambitious entrepreneurs that is still not, because they're doing all the things that are right, possibly, which are right on to the T, but they are still not there yet. So what could be really wrong at that stage?
I was that person, so I can speak to that so clearly. It took me years to figure it all out, right? And so part of it is that we make assumptions at the early stages sometimes that we don't question later. So for instance, when I first got started doing internet marketing, it was in the early 2000s, and all these people were putting themselves out as experts in marketing who didn't know their head from a hole in the ground. And so I decided that no internet marketer had a clue what they were talking about. And then over the next 20 years, I never questioned that assumption. And so I inherently would pull in people who didn't know what they were talking about, and I would hire them, and then they would do nothing, and it would reinforce my belief, right? And so I needed to unwind that belief in order for me to actually hire somebody competent, right? So sometimes it's the law of attraction, right? If you believe this, then you will attract the people who make it true, right? Sometimes it is a belief about your market. If you believe that your market is inherently poor, then all the rich people who want your stuff will not be attracted to you, because all your marketing is going to be targeted to people who are poor, and then you're going to be struggling to make ends meet and trying to do, pay what you can and all of that stuff, which is just the mark of somebody who has not figured out their worth and hasn't figured out how to make the money come in, and believes that their people are poor. Right? And I'm not saying don't provide an avenue for the people who can't afford what you do. I actually do believe in providing an avenue, but they have to come to me and say, I really want what you have and I can't afford it. Can we work something out? And then I'm like, absolutely. Let's see what we can do for an exchange, right? But you can't make that your business model, or else that's all you draw in, right? And so it's the belief structures that are in place, and you can be doing all the right things, but if your assumptions, and the assumptions are the hardest things, right? Because they are at a level where you're not conscious of them, right? If your assumptions are problematic in some way, you're going to create problems in the big picture, right?
True.
Yeah.
I think so. So the basic block that everybody who is still not thriving is the belief system that they are following, the assumptions that they are leading their life with still, despite doing all the efforts and all the actions in the process. All right. So, coming to the last question of this podcast episode, what are the few spiritual or energetic practices that you recommend that every busy entrepreneur should do so that they are still, are able to stay calm in a high pressure, goal driven business environment?
Yeah. So the very first one is to have time where you're not doing, right? So one of the biggest challenges is that we are in this workaday world where it's constant distraction, flip, doom scrolling on your phone, binging Netflix at night, it's checkout time, right? And so we do that because we work past our ability to be present during the day. And so the reason why we do that is because we're not present in our bodies. And so I often ask this question of people when I first start working with them. I'm like, how long do you make yourself wait before you can pee? And they're just like, what? I'm like, you know what I'm talking about. You recognize you need to pee, but then, I just need to finish this, or I'll just do that, or whatever. You zone out, and it's an hour or two later, and you're like, oh, wow, I really need to pee, right? Because you didn't get up when you knew you needed to, right? And this is where you're disconnecting from your body. And it's a very basic question, but it's a very valid one. And it makes everybody go, oh, yeah, I do that, right? And so the thing is that you need to get more into your body. When you're more in your body, when you're more aware of what your physical needs are, when you're more aware of, oh, wow, I'm kind of stiff and sore. I haven't gotten up from the chair in 5 hours, Oh, I forgot to eat lunch. Oh, I needed to pee 3 hours ago and I haven't done that yet. And, God help the dog that needs to go out, right? It's just all the things. I've just disappeared into the computer and I came up for air and it was 6 hours later. It's like, okay, I understand, but when you do that, that's how you burn out. You extend past your ability to cope. And that's why you end up doom scrolling. That's why you end up doing Netflix at night instead of having activities that are renewing and nourishing for you, right? So, for instance, one of the things that I do every week is I have a creative time. I have set up a beautiful little creative space in my arts and crafts room, and I sit down and I make art. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I don't care what I'm going to do with it. I'm doing art for art's sake, and if I throw it out, that's fine. Right? It's literally just about being able to be creative in a way that is not about a goal, right? My husband looked at me after I started doing this for about 3 weeks. He said, "You're doing art this week, right?" And I said, "Yeah, why?" He said, "Because you're happier when you do art." I said, "I am?" And he said, "Yeah, you are happier. I've noticed a significant change in you when you do art." And I'm like, okay, well, that's worthwhile. I thought it was just fun, but evidently I'm happier. So, taking quiet time, just be still, giving yourself something fun to do every single week. Not just, I've got this done, I've got that done, and not working yourself to the point where you have zero energy left at the end of the day to do anything fun. Right? So that's it. It's very much about finding a balance for your social life and for your inner world, as well as for your outer world. I know we're in love with our businesses. I do. I know we're in love with them. I'm in love with my business. I love it like a baby, right? It's my child. I've been nurturing it for 20 years. I understand. And I need to do other things. Right? Yeah.
That's a beautiful analogy again, because when we treat our businesses like our babies, the love that comes forth is also a very different kind, very unconditional kind. But in that kind of love, we tend to forget ourselves, just like mothers do. Mm-hmm. And we just tend to do that inner work, so to say, or the mirror work. And we don't tend to heal the wounds that are still sort of open and sort of still bruising. But you have given a very beautiful nugget over here again, that you need to fine tune with your body. You need to go within, and not at the weekend, but
Right.
sort of every
Well, the
other
weekend's
every other
just
day.
it's another list of to-do lists, right? I mean, it's like, oh, I got to do all these chores, I got to run the errands, whatever. It's just more to-dos, right? And that's the other piece that I see my clients do all the time is that they make their social activities and their fun activities to-dos. And you've got to stop treating them as a to-do, right? They're a get to do. You know?
Very, very true. I absolutely have enjoyed this conversation and hope my viewers are also going to enjoy it, because they all are mostly are entrepreneurs and people who are, career changers, looking for beautiful jobs. So I'm hoping that everybody's going to be loving this podcast episode, because whether it is about decoding limiting beliefs, is it about unlocking your energetic blocks, we've covered it all in this particular podcast in what little way we could. And we've sort of understood how beautifully you do it through your business, Kelly. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. This was lovely.
Loved it. Thank you so much.